Hello everybody and welcome to WhatCulture Gaming with me, Ash Millman, and he, Josh Brown.
Hiya.
How are you today, Josh?
I'm alright, thank you.
Well, you'll be even better soon when you hear what news we have.
Will I?
Yes, which is Drew Karpyshyn, who's a previous writer for BioWare, is talking about his new project and the new company he's working for, and has revealed a little bit of tidbit of information about his old company and the practices that it's going through, and it kind of just explains why BioWare's games have been the way they have been in recent years.
That's awfully kind and polite of them. I would be a bit harsher, Ash, but yeah, obviously, over the past few years, BioWare have not released a good slate of games. I would argue even, starting with Mass Effect 3, some would say that they've been on a kind of downward spiral. Not all. I don't think I would say that. That's just, what I'm going with. But yeah, obviously, BioWare isn't in a great sort of state. They released Anthem last year. They've just announced that they are retooling it, and my friend Drew, I said that because I panicked and didn't know if I could pronounce his last name.
Karpyshyn.
Drew Karpyshyn has come out and essentially just sort of explained what's been going on in BioWare. It's essentially what we've already known anyway. Yeah. We've always assumed that EA over the past couple of years have more or less transformed BioWare as a company into something more corporate, more chasing the mainstream dollar. And that's more or less what he says. The mainstream dollar, cash money.
Feel it in their games, though, is the thing. Everything he said, which is a big long quote. I'll give you the honours of reading that, Josh.
Oh, thank you.
You have the honours of reading the big long quote. It's basically everything that he said in it you can feel in their more recent games. I think just hearing it on paper, hearing it on paper. I think reading it on his website and seeing his post about it just kind of confirms all the suspicions that you already had about BioWare and their practices.
Yeah, because this quote comes from a post on his website as he's just joined Archetype Entertainment, which is his new studio, actually headed up by some other former BioWare employees. He's joined as the lead writer, and he sort of went into the new project, which is going to be a multi-platform, story-driven RPG, which sounds a lot like the stuff BioWare used to make, but he did have this to say, quote, "I've been in the video game industry for 20 years now. When I started at BioWare, everything was fresh and exciting. It was a dream job. Talented people working together to create epic games like Baldur's Gate, KOTOR, Mass Effect, and Dragon Age. But as we grew and became more successful, things changed. We became more corporate. We were less able to make what we loved, and the teams were pushed to create games based on market research rather than our creative instincts and passions." I was so close. "My dream job became just a job, and I lost the enthusiasm and excitement I once had," end quote. So yeah, I mean, it's stuff we already kind of assumed that they were doing things based on market research and what's popular at the time. That's why we've got Anthem as a loot-to-shoot, a live service game. That's presumably why we had more action in Mass Effect as that series went on and we saw the RPG elements stripped back. But it sucks because Drew has actually left the company a couple of times. He left before Mass Effect 3, he wasn't the lead writer on that project, and then he came back, hopefully, to try and right the ship. He actually worked on Anthem in the post-release content for Star Wars The Old Republic, so he's sort of seen the best and worst of BioWare, and considering Anthem was the last project he worked on, and that's what ultimately made him jump ship, I think all of this kind of rings true.
It's a very fair statement. I feel like at least it feels very honest. It just feels like, okay, I've been there, I've been through it. Here you go, guys. Here's what you thought. It is true enough. I'm just happy he's going back with his pals, because he expect going back to James Olin, who used to work for BioWare. He worked for BioWare for a big long time with he did, oh my god, did you hear that noise that came out of my mouth? That was horrible. He worked on Baldur's Gate, KOTOR, and Dragon Age, and he was BioWare for 22 years, I think it was, which is ridiculous. And now he's heading up this new studio with Chad Robertson as well, who's going to be their general manager. So they're all people who've done all the good BioWare stuff and are there. I'm just happy he's there, as much as the BioWare stuff that's come out is really horrible, and okay, they've just turned into a market research company. Now, it's just nice that the good people are being plucked and plopped into Wizards of the Coast project instead.
It is. I think you see that quite a lot when disgruntled, heads of studios, they break off and form their own, essentially, in name only, spin-off. Because I remember when the leads of Infinity Ward went to make Respawn Entertainment. Obviously, they didn't make modern military shooter games that were like Call of Duty, but they made, intense first-person games that were arguably just as good. And I hope this becomes kind of a version of that, where you have the ethos of the ethos of what made BioWare's older games so enjoyable, and that can be translated to this new studio. Scott has always mentioned, and he's always told me, that the BioWare I used to love is not the BioWare that still exists today.
Oh, that's so sad.
It is so
on
sad.
Valentine's Day of all days.
Of all days, I'm breaking up, and we're all breaking up with BioWare, it seems. But yeah, that sucks. I pushed back against that for the longest time. I thought, no, EA can be a dumb company, but they won't take a studio.
They can be real dumb.
They can be real
stupid,
silly
dumb BioWare.
billies. They've done some weird things in the past, but I always thought that BioWare would be the team to survive because they weren't a shooter, studio. They were known for creating story-driven RPGs, and I always hoped that eventually EA would get the memo and stop trying to morph them into something they aren't, and let them just do what they're good at. But I don't think that's ever going to happen.
Not allowed. I think with these people leaving and with this coming out, it's not going to be something that BioWare pick back up. Like, if all of your talent that's doing this writing and are passionate about these projects are going away, then you're going to be left with the people who are the people who are forced into just pumping out the stuff and getting the results and going by the numbers rather than the inspiration that drove them in the first place. I think, again, looking to the future with the new projects, the Archetype Entertainment's story sounds like the new game they're going to be making sounds a lot like Mass Effect, Knights of the Old Republic. I think the closest quote I had was a multi-platform role-playing game set in an all-new science fiction universe that will send players on a story-driven epic where choices they make will have real consequences on how their story unfolds. So it's the same dealio.
That sounds exactly like Mass Effect. If I had to sum it up, it would be using almost exactly those words. I do hope that they can fill the gap, because I was looking at when BioWare actually joined EA, which was just in the late 2000s after they shipped Mass Effect 1, because that was actually made in collaboration with Microsoft Studios. That's why it was an exclusive for the Xbox. And then with Mass Effect 2 and Dragon Age Origins, that was back in the day,
the good ones,
which was well over a decade now. They started to change. I think you can even see in the jump from Mass Effect 1 to Mass Effect 2, which was the first EA published game, that it was way more action heavy. The RPG systems in the choice and the story were obviously still there, but in the kind of way loot was handled, the way exploration was handled, that was stripped back. And although Dragon Age Origins was published by EA, that game was in production for about 5 years before EA got their hands on it, which could explain why that was a much bigger and more robust experience than Dragon Age 2, which was developed entirely while BioWare was, bought out by EA. So it kind of, I never thought about looking at that and going back to sort of check where the jump happened. It's almost instantaneous, and maybe it's part of what BioWare wanted to do as well. I'm not entirely blaming EA, but it is a strange correlation to look at the games that were made immediately after they signed that deal and how radically different they were to the games that they were working on beforehand.
It's very interesting when they're in a series. Again, I hadn't thought of looking at that, or hearing you say it, it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense, like why they've gone for these choices and why they do different things. But Mass Effect and Mass Effect 2 is definitely the better of those two games.
I would say so, yes.
Yeah, and Dragon Age 2 is not the better than Origins, but what are you going to do with that? But Mass Effect 2's changes, I think, actually helped it a lot in the long run and in the series as a whole, and all the things that it did and innovated on were wonderful. It's the best science fiction game of
all time?
Ever? I was going to say at least of the decade, but like it is all time. It's just it is the ultimate game. So where was the shift from that point to then fully shilling themselves out for the corporate side? Because obviously they moved to EA and then slowly devolved. You'd have thought that they'd have learned from mistakes that they had with other games where things kind of went slightly downhill and then come back stronger, but no, instead everyone's gone.
I think it's because, when it comes to this specific EA studio, it's not a Visceral Games where that suddenly switched overnight. 1 minute it was making Dead Space, then the next minute it was making a Battlefield spin-off about cops and robbers, and that was very jarring, whereas BioWare's games have always sold pretty well. They've always had the goodwill of the fans, and I think that's made the shift more gradual, so you get things like the jump from 1 to 2, and things are kind of scaled back, but it's not terrible, and you get 2 to 3, where a whole dialogue option has been taken out and you only have 2, and most of the quests are fetch quests and things get, more crunchy.
There was good things in Mass Effect 3.
Again, Ash, I'm not saying there isn't. I like Mass Effect 3 more than most people. There's some high points in that game.
Yeah. I can't talk objectively about it. I can't. After hearing so long of people being like, oh, it sucks, it's the worst thing ever, the ending of that game ruined my life. I can't. There is good things in it. But you're right.
I agree. But would you agree? Would you agree there were certain elements where the cracks were starting to show?
Yeah.
And I think that's just sort of continued through. And I think it is because you don't have the people like Drew, and you don't have the people there.
Your friend and mine, Drew.
Our friend Drew. Please Send him some love. You don't have those people at the helm, those real creative drivers who the project is structured around. All of the horror stories we've had about the development of games like Mass Effect, Andromeda, and Anthem is the lack of one single creative vision. It's the fact that there is no someone at the helm of the ship driving it forward. It's kind of a scramble, and the game's come together in the last 12 months, allegedly so, according to these insights, and then it's just sort of patched up afterwards. All of them seem like a miracle. They talk about the BioWare magic, and I feel like when you lose all of these people, that's not really possible anymore.
But
come on.
Your friend of mine, Drew, does talk about the magic in his thing. He says that he can feel the magic at the new place. I just want to focus on the good part of that because he seemed so positive, and the rest of that post was really good. And I think Wizards of the Coast having their video game studio and moving away from like the magic properties and doing something fully science fiction, I just think is a wonderful, exciting prospect. Especially if they've got the Mass Effect people there, they've got these really talented names who are attached to really amazing games. We're going to get something good from those. So you know what? As much as BioWare is dead and buried and we're chucking dirt on it and going pleh, pleh,
pleh, pleh, pleh. That's Spill your beans.
Pleh, pleh. Oh my God, sorry. That was the lighthouse. No, but yeah, I think as much as that's gone, something rises from the asses.
Something rises from the asses of BioWare. It's Willem Dafoe. He's eating dirt. Spill your beans, boy.
The lighthouse has thrown me off here. I'm trying to say rising from the ashes, and just ass and bot are on the mind from that horrible, amazing movie. But yeah, good things are to come from Archetype. So, what do you think about this rise from the asses, and how do you feel about BioWare? How do you feel about this quote and lovely Drew and his work and moving over to Archetype, and what do you want from these games that are going to come from these guys? Did you know all along that was what was going on with BioWare? Could you have guessed it? Let us know. Put it in the comment section. Go on, have a little type away. Go in there.
Tell us about the asses as well, please.
Please, talk about the bots. I've been Ash.
I've been Josh.
Well, he's covered that
bit. I'll take the words out of your mouth.
This has been Josh.
Like a phoenix rising from the asses.
Please, we're going to end this video now. Happy Valentine's Day. Share the love to all. I'm going to go.
Are we going to end this video now?
Goodbye.
Bye.